Hi everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Today we have a gel printing session. I'll be using TCW stencils in the creation of these gel prints. So if you've seen my last video, you'll know that I just got the new for 2019 summer TCW stencils along with some other stencils that I had on my wish list. So one of the things that I do right off the bat is put paint through the stencil, and nothing works better than putting it on the gel plate. So that's what I'm going to do today. I find that it gives me a good idea. I can often see the positive and the negative, and it gives me ideas for usability. And quite often I'm really surprised at some stencils. So I have my Jelly Arts 8x10 gel plate, and I'm going to actually be using two of them here. I have my brayer, speedball, I have an old phone book that I'm going to brayer off paint, and I'm going to use these colors. I want to make collage papers with these colors. So I grabbed out my paints. Many of my paints are almost done, so it's a great time to do gel printing as it uses a lot of paint. And I have some mark making tools, cardboard, shelf liner, etc. And I'm all set to go. Now this was a long session, and I'm also using some recycled papers. There's one side is printed. Some of this is out of order, but I kind of pieced together things that belong together, so it makes a little bit more sense. So the first thing I'm going to do in this session is get some background color on some papers before I even dig out my stencils. And I'm sometimes putting my mark making tools. I might be using the shelf liner. I might be using cardboard, some texture plates that I've made as well. And I'm using it as stamping on them and just getting some interest built up. Basic background color. Now I'll be honest, some of these I end up using as they are, but I'm going to want to put some of these stencils on a colored background. And I find that having a few to start off with really helps the process. And because I'm making a lot of gel prints here, I am using two of my plates at the same time. I have a lot of projects, both online and create projects upcoming, and I want to have a lot of these in my stash to use. So I've sped up this part of the video, but the part where I'm going to put the stencils, which is coming right up here, I've slowed down and you'll be able to see the process of it. I do have another video coming where you're going to see more of this kind of slowed down and in detail. And you can also check out my gel printing playlist. So here's all my background sheets, or at least some of them. And I'm getting ready to use my brand new stencils. So this is Tuscan Floral. And there we have, I've already pulled paint through the stencil from the top here on one of it, and I've kind of bumped the stencil and I get a better pattern. So when you're pulling paint through the stencil like this, it's kind of like a wipe-off sheet. I often try to utilize that if there's an interesting pattern. Now I'm taking this colored sheet and putting it off and pulling the first print with the pink background. And as you can see, and here's another one that I did, you get a very nice pattern on there. And here are some close-ups of it, the one you saw me create, as well as some others that I put paint through that maybe weren't captured on the camera. It gives you a different idea. Some of these are first prints. Some of them have, this one is on a white background. That one's very faint, kind of a pull-off print or ghost print at the end. Here's one where I pulled it off through the paint, and I love that. And here's just the pull off on a white background. So you can see how it looked better on the colored background. And there's another color combination. Now these I can add more paint to. I can do a wash. This stencil is called Screen View, and it's a new for summer 2019. And I really like it. I also end up finding when I use the backgrounds that had some shelf liner on it or something else, it really added to the finished product. So don't think because you're using your stencil that all you have to do. Here I've got a shelf line peeking through the back. Here I just left the white space. But as I was saying, you can add to this during the gel printing session or when you're adding to the gel print later on. Here there's some mesh that I also put through the background, and it just added to the finished product. And here's a different color scheme. I find that I take off the lids of the Liquitex Basics. The paint, I have more control over where I put the paint. The lid's not in the way. By the time I was done this gel printing session, which lasted probably 4 to 5 hours in completion, within this video and the next. Here I'm just putting the shelf liner on and pulling it off. And I am pressing it onto a paper. So you can press it onto a white paper as I've done there and build up multiple layers and different pull-offs, or you can put it on a colored print. And I do both. But the stencil that I'm using coming up right away is called Orb Mandala, and there's a lot of white space in it. That's why I wanted to get some print underneath it or some other marks. And so there you have it. And it just added that little bit of extra something to it. So when you have a stencil that has wide open spaces like this one does, that works really well. And there's just my plaid one. So now I have my first print. And when I switch colors, I try to pick colors that are going to work well together, that are next to each other on the color wheel. Here I have the green one, and I don't like all that white space, so I'm putting yellow on top of it. And you can see it, the stencil is pushed back, the first gel print is pushed backwards. And it gives an interesting effect. So if you don't like what your gel print looks like, it just means it's not done yet. And there you can see there's very faint, that was kind of a ghost print that comes through. And here's a close-up of these. This one I put the print on top of a yellow background. Here I pulled off with yellow to get all the crusty bits. You can see every pull is a little different, and that's what I love the gel plate for. Here I kind of used the stencil afterwards, and I stenciled through it on top of what was very, very, very faint, just to bring out the stencil again. So there's where you can add after the fact. Now here's a stencil. It is TCW 450 Art Deco Leaves. This is not new, but it is new to me, and I love it. There was a reason it was on my wish list. It's just a very interesting, organic mark making tool. So I'm putting the green on purple. Not sure what I'm thinking there. Obviously, that's not a great color combination. But I left that in because quite honestly, and there we can pull it and we have the green and the white. And you can always add a lighter color, a very translucent color after the fact. Here I put the green onto a yellow background. Loving that. And we still have some, you can see the marks on the gel plate. So I'm doing a clean off print here. Usually when you do a clean off print, if you leave it on a little bit longer, it just kind of sucks it all up and you get a very distressed type of look. So there we have one, get all sorts of different looks with the same stencil, different pulls. And then I decide I'm going to try a different color scheme. And yes, if you look at the gel plate, there's a different color there because this I took out of order and I came back to using this stencil, but I just organized it for you, putting all the same stencil together. So I have a background color with some stamping from a shelf liner in a color combo that I like. It gives a very different effect. Pull that off through the stencil. Now I'm going to take the first pull. And I'm loving that in that different color combo too. So here the white is through it. If I want, I can do a wash of color on top of this, either with or without the gel plate. I like that bubbled look that you get. And here's where I pulled the print either onto a colored background or it was a pull-off print. That one's onto a colored background, the other one was a pull-off print. So you get a slightly different effect with each different type of pull. This one doesn't remind me of leaves so much anymore. So I have yellow on there, so I'm putting a little bit of orange. And this is just Liquitex Basics. I just had cleaned out the tube and put it in a container to use. This one's called Celtic Design. A new to me one. And I'm pulling this on an orange background that has some shelf liner markings on it. And I love that tone on tone. And that's definitely something that I will use on a canvas, whether I use the gel plate or I stencil onto tone on tone. So I pulled out the paint. Now I'm going to do the first pull. And I decide I'm going to put it on the green plaid background that I created. I'm not sure where that one ended up. It didn't show up, I'm sure, in my close-ups. But here are some blue ones that I did. That was the first pull. That was the pulling it off the paint through the stencil. Now that would have been better if I had put it onto a colored background. And here's the tone on tone one. I apologize for any missing gel prints. Understand, I probably have 300 gel prints sitting all over my desk. This one's called Scrollwork, and I pulled it through the stencil to get what I just showed you. And now I'm taking the colored background and pulling this through. And you're getting that layered effect. So there's the one and there's the other. It's kind of a positive and a negative. But I'm loving both of them. And I love this Scrollwork stencil. I'm thinking, okay, I can cut, like if I was doing fish, collaging fish, I would use these to cut out the fish with, if I was doing goldfish. And that's how I intend on using it. What you create is going to be for how you use it. And for most part, I'm going to either use it ripped up or I'm going to use it collaged elements, dragonflies, butterflies, fish, mittens, teacups, whatever. And you've seen, if you want to see some of those, check out some of my art journal stencils. This one's called Native Star. I didn't do a whole lot with it, but I am going to show you. Because there's a lot of white space through there, I'm putting this, using the shelf liner to get some interesting marks in some of that space, and I'm just pulling it off. And I love that stencil. So it's definitely going to show up on a canvas. There's lots of motifs in that, you know, and that was part of my goal here. It wasn't necessarily to create even collage sheets, but it was to just to get to know the stencils and get some ideas, get my mind and brain going as to what these look like when you put paint through them. So there I had the print, and I added a layer of paint, and this is just a pull-off print, and it's very, very, very faint. It may have worked better if I had a lighter color, but it's there, and it's adding interest to that gel print. And for the purposes that I have, whether I add something to it or not, that's going to work just perfect. Now, this was the sleeper stencil of the bunch. This 864, it's called Irises. And I just showed you the print that I pull. I was so in love with it. I pulled this and I thought, oh, well, let's just give this a try. And I wasn't expecting it to be great for gel printing. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I absolutely loved this stencil. And I played with it quite a bit. Carmen Medlin is the designer, and this is such a beautiful piece of work and stencil. And I will definitely be doing a canvas with it, even in some of the color schemes that I've got here. I've got fond memories of irises, going back to my grandma and my mom, growing them. So it just, and this stencil is just lovely. So, I mean, I will definitely be using this stencil as a focal point to add to a background and gel printing, because it's giving me some great things. So I play around with different colors here. And yes, my stencils got covered with paint, and I'll put a link to the video where I show how I clean my stencils quickly and easily, the best way I've found. I've got several ways of doing it. Now when I'm pulling off this, I just want pattern on there. I'm not looking to get a perfect iris print on that. There I used white to pull off, and here's a close-up of the gel prints that I got. Some of these are, I could frame them as they are, like this one, because I had the shelf liner painting in the background and then the iris pull through. That was a first print. Here's another one where I pulled through, but I didn't have the shelf liner on that one, and I like the other one better. And that one I used white on a darker background. And this one I love the color combinations, the blues, the teals, the in there. And there's my white pull-off. In real life, you can make out the irises a lot better, but I was going for more the pattern or the design underneath. So I think this is the last one. And this is another stencil that I was really excited about and anxious to see what the paint looked like through the stencil, and that is Maidenhair Fern. So, and this is another one by Carmen Medlin. And I put it on the orange background. I'm putting this quinacridone magenta because I know that those colors work well. And again, I just want the pattern through here. I'm not looking to get a perfect Maidenhair Fern print. Because remember, I'm going to use this either ripped on as a collage element at the beginning of my art journal page or canvas, or I'm going to use it as a collage item in the finished part. So I pulled through, and I'm absolutely loving that. Just something, I'm not sure if it's the color or the pattern or just everything together that just, yeah, squeals of joy. So if you like this gel printing video, stay tuned because I did make another one where I put away the stencils and I got out my mark making tools, and I've done some other things to some of those background sheets because like I said, everything was out and my fingers were all messy and I was just going to town with it. So I've made 2 videos. Check out my playlist, my gel printing, make them and use them. If you'd like to see more, give me a comment down below. If you'd like to see a particular color scheme, put it down in the comments section below. Links to the stencils and gel plates can be found in the description box below. Thank you for shopping through my influencer links. So get out your gel plate and just have fun. And here I'm just pulling it out through onto a pull-off sheet. I'm not trying to keep it. I just want to get that out, and I didn't have an idea or color sheet handy. There's an interesting color scheme. Again, that didn't, it's lost in the pile of gel prints. Now these gel prints can be used as instant backgrounds on art journal pages as well. And some of them you're going to see again. Thanks again for watching.